I don't know. There should be some, I don't know, severance, at least a watch. I remember saying, I'm like, am I going to get a watch? Am I going to get something? It's like,
I hope like a Rolex or at
like
least
something. I would even take a entry level Cartier, a 3,000.
okay.
Like
Well, that's very nice of you, Carole.
I never got it. I didn't even get flowers. No, but I'm saying I don't like to say I know Heather said like recast it, and she's right. But you are talking about people's livelihoods as it was mine for that time, right? So yeah, I would say, I would say maybe a new production company. The new production company might serve Bravo better in the New York City area.
But it's your point before. It sounds like you think Ramona is like a quintessential, like she's a star, according to you. I'm not saying she's not
like her. People, and maybe I'll get hate for the people. I know people don't like her, and she's very polarizing. But in the same way, so is Bethenny. So, that they are. That's what you need on the show. But listen, it's not 2011 anymore. When I first got on the show, when you have a show built on female betrayal, these narratives that are steeped in patriarchal tropes. Does that last? I mean, in 2021, does that last post Me Too? Does that that's what the shows are, you're counting on, female betrayal and, these kind of shaming narratives, not to mention then the criminal element is just like the icing on the cake. This is the cherry.
Well, to that point, like, do you think maybe, like ratings are pretty much down, not for Beverly Hills because of this whole Erica thing.
And
Kathy Hilton and Potomac is up a little, but like, do you think there's maybe just a different world, to your point, that maybe this is like everything ends, right?
Yeah. I think so. I think everything comes to its logical conclusion. And it's, if we learn one thing during the pandemic is like the need to pivot, right? And if you're not going to pivot, you're eventually going to, become the dinosaur. And it'll always be a cultural phenomenon. And when they started in 2007, it started at a month later, Twitter was launched. That's how long ago it was. Like, think about Twitter. There's no Instagram. Facebook was around, but no one was using it. So, it's like I said, hats off to Bravo. They created a really powerful brand, and they aligned themselves with the issues and narratives that maybe don't play as well in 2021.
I don't necessarily.
It's funny. There's this guy, Dave Quinn, who wrote a book, and I'm sure I'm going to sound like an ass in it because I talked to him I talked to him like this, right? Like I was just talking and, as I said, I could talk, but we were mostly laughing. I mean, I think he was laughing the whole time. I was like one story after another, laughing. And of course, when you're laughing and doing an interview is quite different, as it's going to happen with this podcast. When you see it in black and white on the page, it kind of lands differently. So I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of stuff in that book that's going to make me sound like, I'm shading the women or whatever language they use. But it's funny because he said to me, he wanted to use something I said as an epitaph, which is like what they put on your
Tell me.
Right? An epitaph?
Yeah. What did he want to use that you said?
Let me just
see. And that book is coming out soon.
The book is coming out, and we probably should have waited so we could address some of the silliness I said in my interview.
Well, you know what that means? You just need to come back on.
When does this air?
Well, that's a really good question. I'm going to figure that out.
Oh, okay. Because I didn't know if it's live, like not live, but like.
No, like I usually go and then I edit a little bit out. It's going to be a two-parter because, I mean, it just is because. No. Everything you're saying is like, so like some things I'm just like, this is so interesting. But I mean, a lot of things. But what was I going to say to you? Well, because you say you wanted to be part of the cultural phenomenon, which it is.
Yes.
Like, when people look back, when Housewives is over, because I hate to break it to everyone listening, everything in the entire world is going to end. like, what do you think people are going to say about Housewives like 10, 20 years from now? Like, holy shit, these women are crazy. Like,
I
what the
mean,
hell was this disaster? Or like, no, it withstands the test of time.
I don't know if it stands the test of time in the way that All in the Family really stood. Like, think about All in the Family in the 70s, right? He was a racist.
Amazing.
He was that guy, and they did that because it was scripted so brilliantly and it was satire, right? That's what it was. And he was satirizing the current climate of the culture at the time. And so I think like a show like that does land differently. I don't know if Housewives is going to have the same appreciation 20 years from now. We're going to look back. I mean, I hope it does, because I was part of it, and there's a part of me that, I have an ego too. And I'm like, well, I'd like it to be thought of as this great cultural moment where we were doing something that was reflecting what was going on in our culture. But I don't know. I think now, like I said, it feels different, and maybe they'll pivot and maybe it won't be. I think if you look at the Kathy Hilton experience and you see how she said what she talks about and how she confronts the other women, there's just a different quality. That I think they need to get back to that. They need to get back to, talking about oral sex with Ramona in a way that she doesn't feel threatened or shamed, right?
Yeah.
That like underlying, like, wink, wink, we're in on the joke.
Yeah. And listen, I mean, I wasn't coming for Ramona. Like when Ramona was scurrying, like Ebony was talking about our current vice president and Ramona was scurrying. She like could not get out of it. She didn't know where to look. She couldn't get out of it. I'm like, this is the exact same thing as Bethenny being under the cabinet when Carole is talking about.
Yeah, I
like
didn't
it's
know
literally.
that. Yeah. But
like,
Bethany could get away with it for some reason in the way Ramona didn't. But both of them are the workhorses of the show. And it's funny because I didn't know Bethany was crawling in the cabinet. I just thought she was bending down to get something out of the cabinet. And only when I saw the show, I was like, Jesus, she's like trying to make me look crazy. Like, I'm not crazy. Everyone in the country is talking about this. I was going to talk about it. But anyway, here's what he said. He said, would you mind looking at this epitaph quote? Now, I don't know if it's is this going to be on my tombstone? And he says, this is what I say. The editing is the lie. The camera is the truth. But the reality is every fight you see on the show, from the silly bickering over not being invited to a party to the table flips, wine tosses, and leg throws, are always about the show itself. When you are filming, if someone barely offended you, you had to rise to the level of being mortally wounded. But what you were really upset about was how the audience was going to view it, and whether that drama was going to make them a star or make you look like a whatever, fill in the blank, sexist, racist, delusional person. And it really was like all the fights I thought were about whatever petty thing was going on. And listen, the pettier the better. The petty fights are the funniest.